Hi. This is Tom Hart from SAW.
Yeah, and this is Justine Mara Andersen. I'm one of the teachers at SAW. And what we're looking at here are basically inks. We'll probably talk a little bit about drawing as well, but we're going to be talking a bit about inks of some of the great inkers, some of the great artists in comics. Now we're looking at Moebius. And one of the things I loved here is that, when I draw a page, I'm not just thinking about the composition of the panel, I'm thinking about how it's going to relate to the panel underneath. And if you look at the spotting of these blacks, there's really a flow here. And notice how this balances out with this. I know that seems like an odd detail to notice, but I
Mm,
guarantee that was not
right,
unintentional.
right, right. Yeah, there's even a curve here that mimics that curve there, and it frames the whole page.
Yeah, it's funny when people don't, maybe take comics seriously as art because I don't think there's any art form that has to contend with so much. I mean, we're dealing with time here. We're dealing with travel from one panel to another. We're dealing with composition not only of the panel, but how the compositions work together on the page as a whole.
Oh, there's no singing involved.
And there's no singing at all. There's
Look at
all,
this. Look at the rendering on this. It's
wow.
so simple, brushy, a little bit of white on top, but oh, wow.
This is also so different than his so-called deadline stuff, which
Right.
is a term I only started hearing a year ago, and here we are. This is that deadline thing. Okay, I can't talk much about this because I don't understand how it's done. I can't figure out how any space is created here. Tom, you love Moebius. Talk about this.
Well,
I mean, I love it
uh,
too, but it's just this is beyond my. I don't know how to work like
I think he's
this.
just using composition to create space. I mean, there's a
Yeah,
huge amount of depth there that's created by a complete lack of anything in the foreground, right? Um,
right.
and then controlling the density. There's a huge crowd here. There's a huge crowd here.
Yeah.
Miniature version of the same thing up here, which lets us see it as more in the
Well,
distance.
of course, it's not that I'm an idiot and I don't see
Right.
that, but I can't figure out how to pull it off.
Well, I wouldn't do it.
Um, but let's look at someone who did this also. Historically speaking, earlier. When you look at Wynton McKay, now I learned this because I had to copy Wynton McKay for a big job that SAW did for the city of Gainesville, and I realized that Wynton McKay uses only two line weights, which is a remarkable thing. You can see all throughout it, there's basically two line weights and almost no line weight variation,
Mm-hmm.
which is fascinating.
An
And
outline and
yeah, and look at
yeah.
the beautiful placement though of how, this just
Oops.
so perfectly breaks all this space
Oh
here.
yeah.
There's no confusion. There are
Mm-hmm.
no weird tangents going on. And then look down here where he's got this like
Cigar.
I would have almost assassinated a student for doing that. But
Putting that line right in perspective.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you would normally consider that a tangent, but that's the great thing about a really terrific master artist is they can make things work that are
Mm-hmm.
mistakes in the hands of other people.
Mm-hmm. So great. Wow. Okay.
We teach the Sequential Artist Workshop, by the way, and I teach a very in-depth inking class if anyone's interested. And my website's barefootjustine.com, and we're at the sequentialartistworkshop.org. I
Mm-hmm.
should mention that. And I know I kept saying this is wrong because I kept thinking it was Frank Miller, but it's Chaikin, right?
No, no, no. It's Miller, and it might be Miller and Jansen, and I know
Okay.
Klaus Jansen, and I'm ashamed I don't remember if this is his page or not. I mean, it's Miller penciling either way, but I can't remember if this is a Jansen page.
Yeah, this is so much from my era. I like stuff that's so much older, but this is a great thing. This also is something that like in the hands of my students, this would be a series of mistakes because all the heavy lines are on top and not on the bottom, which means that it's like your weight's like inverted. The weight is on top, the light is on the bottom. But I think as we discussed, I think the light source is coming from the
Down
city
here.
below.
Mm-hmm. And,
So it's really cool to see that. But
and
it does add a sense of weight, though, to Batman's chest and cape, doesn't it?
mm-hmm.
Having the heavy lines up there.
And zooming in, I'm sorry, I just want to talk, like, look how loose some of these lines are. I mean, it's like, you draw with a stick sometimes. It's
A
almost like it's
toothpick.
drawn with yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure it's not, but wow. It's really, really compelling. And they're so thick. Those lines are so thick, and it makes you feel the volume of that chest so much.
And there's just an urgency to the action. And
Yeah.
these lines are all
Yeah.
about communicating the urgency of the action.
Mm-hmm. And that's what you talk about when you talk about Frazetta's paintings too, is the urgency of
Yeah.
the characters and stuff.
Oh, here we are with a
This is-
master, Nestor Redondo, who I absolutely adore. And here's another question my students would ask, how do you draw hair? Well, look at the hair. There's this hair, there's this hair, there's this hair,
Frankenstein's hair.
there's this hair.
Mhm.
There's no such thing as how do you draw hair. I love here how the spotting blacks are right here in this cube. Isn't that terrific? Look at the different hair here and here as well. I love this sweater.
That streak. Yeah.
And
oh
my God, the texture, the sort of textural quality of all of this. Nestor Redondo was just a master beyond compare, and you don't hear his name often enough. I think he deserves a lot more credit and mention than he gets.
God, even something as simple as this lamp, I get thrown off by simple things like that. Like, I think it's
but
beautiful.
You're supposed to, because when I was trying to get into DC before I did, I heard the same complaint over and over again in every portfolio review that everybody brought was, yeah, you can draw, a superhero, but can you draw a desk? Can you draw a lamp? And when you notice something like that, that's what they were looking for. They were looking for someone who could draw a lamp and who could make that lamp look cool, who could draw an office or whatever and make that office look great. They're not just looking for dynamic poses. Of course, those gatekeepers are mostly gone now, but
Whoops.
We've only got 2 left.
Yeah, Frazetta. I mean, Wrightson, sorry.
Yeah, I love Wrightson's sense of humor.
Gosh, that's so great.
It's funny because Wrightson is often, highly influenced by Doré, but here you're really not seeing Doré. This is just Wrightson. It's like you can see where Frazetta was maybe a jumping off point, but how quickly Wrightson became Wrightson. The spotting of the blacks is perfect. These rendering lines all adding to the action. That's one thing that students need to be careful and need to watch is what directions are your lines going? What story are your lines telling? Your lines can't just be put in willy-nilly. They have to be telling a part of the story. And there's a lot of detail here, but there's no line pollution.
Wow. And let's just take a quick look at a couple of trees.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
Like, compare. It's mostly silhouette, isn't it?
Yeah, except for that one in the foreground, which is grayed out a bit.
And so the last one I pulled out is this Virgil Finlay, which has no, it's, completely abstract. But man.
And I know he worked with scratchboard, and I can never tell, when we're looking at scratchboard or when we're looking at something that is purely drawn. Again, his working methods are a bit of a mystery to me too, but the methodicalness of Virgil Finlay is really astonishing. Talk about tightness too, right? I've never seen a loose moment in a Virgil Finlay, and that's not an insult. That's just, Virgil Finlay was just that sort of really tight classic craftsperson, and there's really no one to compare him to. It's not really Doré. It's not really this. He really kind of found his own thing, didn't he?
Yeah, this is astounding. It's so modern. This is 40s? No, it's before that.
In that era, between the 30s and 50s, right? Looking at those radiant lines around the sun and how they go from thin to thick and how they open back up again, into the white, and then they go from thick to thin and all those waves. You could really, if you really want to learn how to ink, you'd spend a lot of time just copying this area.
Yeah.
I mean, you really want to learn how to control your brush and how to create something like this. Choose something that you see that works and copy that. Just copy it.
Wow.
That's what the masters would do when they would go look at other masters' work. They would copy that work.
Cool. Well, okay, this has been a rainy day,
stormy little lecture.
Inking study,
this is Miss Andersen and Mr. Hart here, and I think you've got all of our information. You know where we are, and I hope you've enjoyed our little tour through this stuff.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.